Good morning, soon to be
Hello,
afternoon, everybody.
Happy Monday.
And Anthony, I like your background. Hot outside there.
Oh yeah, I see some
Well,
good backgrounds. I like Ellen's.
Got the rainbow.
Yeah.
This
Hi,
is
John.
Dauphin County Library System, by the way. This is Riverfront
Okay.
and the Hold'em and Haley House, 2 buildings that are now part of the Dauphin County Library System.
Nice.
And it is very hot standing outside here, so if we could make this meeting quick.
Okay. Hi, Harry. How you doing? Will, good to see you. Let's see. So many people are coming on.
Yeah. Oh, I see Ken Connor. It's good to see Ken. And Bob Pease. How you doing, Bob?
Who else do we have? There's Richard Otley. Good to see you, Richard.
Ken's here. Jillian, Chris. I'm afraid I'm going to say your name so badly. Patricia? How did I do? Oh, good. All right. Hi, Una. How's it going?
This is, so when people come in, they are muted. And what we found is that if we have more than, what, I don't know, 10 people, then we get a lot of feedback if we unmute people.
Sure.
And we should do a little fundraiser, and you know, the folks who put money in the pot get to unmute themselves.
Hi, Andy, Marion. Good to see you. Ryan.
I see Jillian went inside instead of on her porch. I wouldn't want to be outside right now either.
Yeah, so just
people are coming up in droves. My screen's changing all the time.
that's the joy of being a virtual greeter. It's just like bouncing around.
Great, I see. Mark, how you doing? Kurt, Ken, Sherry, Chris Baldridge, how you doing? Chris Markley, Ginny, how you doing? Steve and Matt and Brian. I feel like Miss Mary on Romper Room.
You're right in line. So we remind
Megan, how you doing?
we remind people every week that in the top right-hand corner of your screen, it says speaker view. And if you click on that icon, you can either bounce to speaker view, or you can, you know, tune everybody out if you want to. So, and no one will be able to tell. So that's the way Zoom works. Remember how to use the chat function. Of course, we will be using the chat function a bit later in the meeting today. But we're right up at 12:01. So if we have a bell there to get the meeting started today. Good afternoon, Rotary Club of Harrisburg. It is Monday and it is hot. Hope you're finding a good place to stay cool. Whatever you're doing, just, you know, really stay cool and stay healthy. To open our meeting today, Mr. Doug, doing it right, doing it well. Got to practice that Piper with an invocation.
thank you for the privilege of doing this. We just pray for the Rotary Club of Harrisburg. We pray for our good president, President Good. And thank you for his wonderful sense of humor and his ideas. For all of us to take steps forward every day, to do steps to help Rotary, to serve people and to solve problems and bring people together. Bless our speaker, David Taylor, to enlighten us on the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Help us to take steps that will be beneficial to all concerned. Pray all these things in your holy name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Adeline, what's on tap for our song today?
Today we're going to hear Lift Every Voice and Sing, sung by our local celebrity, Amma Johnson.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Rotary four-way test: of all the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let's keep the four-way test front and center. A couple of thank yous go out today. First, to our corporate members. Thank you so much for your support. Your financial support helps make it possible for us to do the many humanitarian projects that we work on. And a great big thank you to Karen Paris for taking minutes for today's meeting. Now, you'll notice here in the corporate member slide, if you go back to that, Adeline, there is room for one more corporate member. So we do have an opportunity there. And if you or your company, well, if your company would like your logo to be highlighted there and spotlighted in our meetings, just get in touch with Andy Reebok or with Adeline. We have two service projects that are in the works currently. One is happening actually this evening and again on August the 10th. We'll be helping the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank to pack boxes of food. We'll be meeting over at the Farm Show building, and the event occurs from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the evening. So just hop on out to our website, hbgrotary.org, go to the events calendar and click into the event and sign up from there. Joy to the Berg is our district grant project this year, and it's really all about raising money to help homeless initiatives right here in Harrisburg. So Steve Swartz and Sheldon Jones are working really hard at putting that together. Stay tuned for those details as the summer goes along. Our lunch money today, I think that's, yes, we are right on track this morning. Lunch money today is being donated to Hospice of Central Pennsylvania. Now, just as a reminder, we're donating our lunch money because it's money that we would have been spending anyway on lunch if we had been meeting at the Hilton. But since we're not meeting at the Hilton, then we are donating those dollars to local charities who are helping people who desperately need food in our world today. If you have a suggestion of where lunch money could be donated, a local charity, please send your suggestion to Adeline or to one of our board members. And if your lunch money is not included in your dues, then just hop out to the Hospice of Central Pennsylvania website, click on the donate button, and you can make a donation directly from there. I think, yes, dues, speaking of dues are coming up here, and payments can be made directly on our website, hbgrotary.org, and go to member services, and you'll be able to pay your quarterly dues right there. You can also mail a check to the Rotary office as well. We do have a new little exercise that we want to try out here today. And the way this exercise is going to work is the next slide, and don't put the slide up yet, Adeline, but the next slide is going to have a picture. And I need you to guess what the picture means. When you think you know what the picture means, write it into the chat function. The first 3 people who correctly guess what the picture means will receive a small Rotary gift in the mail. So does everyone see how that works? Ready to put the slide up? 3, 2, 1. Here it goes. We have 3, and it is think outside the box. Rotary Club of Harrisburg, in a COVID-19 world, we are thinking outside the box. And we'll continue to do that as the summer goes along. We're also going to include little exercises like this one in our meetings coming up. If you have a little brain teaser like this that you think might work well, send me that note and I'll enjoy hearing about it. All right, today I think we have a Meet the Member coming up, and I have so enjoyed getting to know Jill over the last couple of months, and she just brings a lot of energy, and I'm looking forward to Jill doing her Meet the Member today. Are you out there, Jill?
Yep, here we go. Got it. All right. Hello, everybody. Can you see that okay? Is it there? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jill Tenny, and I am a bit of a photo bug. I love taking photos. Any friends and family who know me, I photo journal all the time. So we're going to roll through this kind of in a series of photos to tell the story. I am a local girl, grew up in the area, lived in Millersburg for many years, graduated from Upper Dauphin High School, graduated Penn State, class of 1991, married a local boy, Matt Tenny from Camp Hill, class of 87, and class of 92 from IUP. It was when I was 17 years old that Rotary opened up an opportunity for me that has really changed my life and the course that it was going to take. I became an exchange student through the Rotary Club of Harrisburg for the 1986-1997 school year. While in Montluçon, France, I did and experienced many of the same things that our exchange students still do today when they come to the United States or when our students go out. After return, during Penn State, I majored in French at Penn State and spent a summer in Nice, France, a study abroad, got to travel quite a bit. After graduation, I got my first job with AMP Incorporated. At the time, my plan was to try and get a job internationally in their French office. That didn't quite work out the way I wanted, but I had a very great career, 16-year career as a sales engineer, and they did transfer me to Austin, Texas. So while in Austin, Texas, I called on Dell Computer and IBM. I got married to my husband, and we had our first 2 children, Jackson and Madeline. In 2002, we returned back to Harrisburg to be with family, and we added Charlotte to the fam to make perfect number 5. I would say hit my midlife crisis when I was 40 and started running, and it didn't stop for a while. Totally, I've run 10 marathons, 3 of which were Boston, countless half marathons and sprint triathlons. After an injury in running put me on the sideline, I turned to volunteerism, and I was able to combine running with volunteering and children, and coached for several years for Girls on the Run. About that time, my children were of age to start inquiring themselves about youth exchange. They knew that I had done it as a child and wanted to do the same. We dipped our toes in youth exchange with the summer reciprocal program, Jackson to France and Madeline to Italy. About that same time, Linda Spots asked me to join the district the district youth exchange committee as a Rotex chair. And then my son decided to move into the long-term exchange and went to Taiwan for the year on exchange from 2017 to 18. My daughter Madeline followed the year after, 2018 to 19. So in a 2-year span, I had my entire family together for 2 weeks. Jackson came home, and 2 weeks later, Maddie left for the year. Then shortly thereafter, I found my true calling, and that is that of a French teacher. I love working with the kids. I love being silly, and I love teaching them everything there is to know and love about French. So there I am as Marie Antoinette and Joan of Arc. One other thing I really love about teaching is the ability to open opportunities for my students. I love taking them to different places and field trips all the time. We're always running a trip to New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, museums, Broadway shows, whatever we can do. I'm very proud of the program that's growing at Bishop McDevitt High School. We now have had 3 long-term outbound students and 3 short-term students from school, so it's thriving at McDevitt. On a side note, one other minor thing well, not minor, but something I'm involved in very heavily and love very much is Mini-thon and 4 Diamonds. So that started with at McDevitt last year. And then I guess I figured it was time for me to officially become a Rotarian. And my our first adventure as Rotarians was to chaperone the Discover America bus trip last summer. I spent the entire month of July, 31 days, 50 kids, 7,800 miles, 22 states, 21 nationalities in one bus. Priceless. Our favorite stop on the Discover America bus tour was actually Rotary International Headquarters. I found it to be really quite moving and really very informative. It was probably my favorite stop on the whole trip. In January, our daughter Charlotte was assigned to Cartagena, Spain for her program. Alas, it was canceled due to COVID. She'll go hopefully next year. July 1st, I became the District Youth Exchange Chair, replacing Linda Spots, who retired after 15 years. So in conclusion, I enjoyed the new Rotarian magazine that came out with our new president, and his quote, he was very involved in youth exchange. Whenever you talk to young people, I can't read the quote, it's hidden. They always say it's the best time of my life. Sometimes I think they're surprised about themselves, about what they are able to do, and about the possibilities that are open to them through Rotary. Holger is past host parent, Club YEO, and chairs the German Multi-District Youth Exchange. I personally very much thank you again, the opportunity that Rotary opened to me back in the day, back when I was a teen, and I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing today with Rotary. I do have one other opportunity. James, would you mind if I throw this out to the membership?
You go right ahead, Jill.
Okay, so the Rotary Club of York, who is also very involved in youth exchange, came to us with an opportunity for us to help open an opportunity for David in their district. So David was an exchange student, inbound exchange student from Nigeria, hosted by the Rotary Club of York. At the time, he was a gap year student, so he was able to stay and apply to college at York College. The Rotary Club of York has kind of kept him afloat, both financially and for giving him host families to be able to stay with during his college career. And he's now a senior in mechanical engineering. This fall, he got an internship at Inclinator of America in Harrisburg. And the York Club has asked us if we could reach out to our membership and find out ask if anybody would be willing, or if anyone knows of a family that might be able to host David from mid-August to mid-December while he does his internship at Inclinator in downtown Harrisburg. So if that's something that would interest you, or you know anybody, or you can point us in the right direction, some way to help David out, get back in touch with me, or I guess through Adeline, you can, or somehow let us know, and we'll try and get you together with the Rotary Club of York and help this young gentleman.
Right. And Jill, just to kind of, be clear on that, he'll be going to work every day, right?
That's right. So it's not, I wouldn't call him an exchange student. He'll be going to work every day. He'll be responsible for his own transportation, whether if he lives close enough, he'll take public transportation, or he'll Uber, or however, or if he can carpool, but it's his job to find his way to work. He's just looking for a place to stay, just to have a roof and maybe someone to have dinner with in the evenings. So no more responsibility than that.
Great. So anyone, again, who wants to step up and volunteer like that themselves, or again, as Jill said, if you know anyone, reach out to Jill, reach out to Adeline. I do have one quick question for you, Jill. Your t-shirt says Rotex on it. Mine just says Rotary Club of Harrisburg, and I'm feeling a little something anyway. How do you get a Rotex t-shirt?
You just have to ask. You have to be a Rotex. You have to be a We made these for the Rotex team. So Rotex means ex-Rotary exchange student. So we hand these out to all of the exchange students once they've gone out. They're outbound while they're out. They're a rebound when they come back. And after they've finished out their rebound training, they're an official Rotex. And it's a community. Yeah, so I'll get you one.
That's right. But there's other, Rotary Youth Exchange swag that you can actually get if you participate in Rotary Youth Exchange. So as the year goes along, we'll be hearing more about that, I'm sure. Thanks so much, Jill. Let's give it up for Jill, and nicely done there. So on the topic of t-shirts, I did forget one critical note, and that is that when you participate in a service project here throughout the year, we'd like you, if possible, to be wearing something that looks like this. So check your wardrobe, and we'd like to make sure everyone has a Rotary t-shirt. They're great, as you can see. So a few months ago, I learned that there was going to be an opening in the program committee, and Ted needed to step off. We miss you, Ted, and I see you right out there, so I'm giving you a shout out. But Mary Oliver stepped right up, and she has been bringing a lot of good things to the program committee. Mary is going to be introducing our speaker today, and you are on for a couple of minutes to do that, Mary.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I think our version of the story is a little bit different. James learned very well from our Betty Hungerford and those that followed that if he asked you for a cup of coffee, you end up walking away not really knowing exactly what you said yes to, but definitely a good cup of coffee and conversation. And hopefully I'm contributing in some way as well to earn that back. So thank you for that cup of coffee and the conversation, James, and the opportunity to serve the club in another way. I'm very appreciative of that. And very excited to introduce our guest today, who's a good friend of the Pennsylvania Chamber family, just a block away from where we'd normally be meeting for lunch today at the Hilton. And it is my pleasure to share with you a little bit of our upcoming speaker. So Dave Taylor is president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, which is the statewide trade organization representing the manufacturing sector in Pennsylvania's public policy process. For over a century, PMA has worked consistently to advance pro-growth policy in the state of Pennsylvania to strengthen the state's manufacturing industry and help Pennsylvania aim high to unleash the growth potential of that particular sector. Dave is a staunch leader in that capacity. In his 23rd year at PMA, he's the association's chief spokesman at the state capitol in Harrisburg and in the media. He's a frequently sought guest and commentator, regularly quoted by media outlets across the Commonwealth and around the world, having been interviewed on television in Japan, Germany, and Canada, to name a few, as well as the airwaves in the UK and Canada. He's host of the Capitol Watch, which is a twice-monthly news and commentary program heard on more than 90 radio stations throughout the Commonwealth. Prior to joining PMA, Dave worked in the United States Senate as well as the Senate of Pennsylvania. He's a native of Huntington, Pennsylvania, graduated from Dickinson College, where he majored in history and dramatic arts. He lives near Hershey, PA, having just celebrated an anniversary with his lovely wife, so congratulations to you there, as well as his daughter and 2 spaniels. One fun fact about Dave is that he's a big fan of President Calvin Coolidge. And to sum him up in his introduction here, I'm going to share a thought from a former colleague. Dave's personable professionalism is a perfect foundation stone for the standout government affairs veteran he's known to be. I couldn't have asked for a stronger advisor and friend in Harrisburg. After each all too brief visit, I consider myself enriched and broadened, particularly with his command of history and ability to apply it more nuanced lessons to the matters at hand today. This kind of connection in the government and public affairs arena is highly sought after and jealously treasured. And we here at the Chamber feel the same way about Dave Taylor. So please join me in welcoming our guest speaker today, Dave Taylor from Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association.
Goodness, Mary, thank you so much. And I appreciate the invitation to be here. I want to thank the club for having me, and that I want to salute all of you, that that spirit of citizen service and working in the community to help others is part of the social capital that makes America great. And that I know that that's perhaps fallen out of fashion somewhat, but it's as important as ever, perhaps even more important than ever. You know, I'm grateful in my own small hometown of Huntington, PA, that we have a long tradition there of community service and civic leadership, that my granddad was a Rotarian. And even though he passed away long ago in 1967, that my sister in 1989 had the privilege of being a Rotary scholar, and that she spent a year at James Cook University in Townsville, Queensland, Australia. And my own dad was a longtime leader with the local Lions Club. When I was a kid, I was active with the Kiwanis Youth Service Organization of Key Club. I was a state officer, and believe it or not, one of my contemporaries on the state board was Greg Rothman of Mechanicsburg. And you know, he's like a bad penny. He just turns up everywhere. So it just goes to show your involvement in civic leadership through community service organizations, you know, does, again, build those bonds of friendship that help to, you know, make all of our lives, you know, rich and meaningful. So you heard a lot about me with the intro. Let me talk about the association. So I'm an advocate for manufacturing, that the association is here to be involved with the public policy process, to monitor what's going on, and to address the question of competitiveness, that we recognize, you know, because it's a free country and a free economy, all of these economic decisions are voluntary as to, you know, where a business is located, how it operates, where it expands, you know, chooses to hire more people, that, you know, we need the fundamentals in Pennsylvania to be strong so that people will choose to locate and hire and grow here as opposed to one of our competitor states. And so that's our mission here at PMA. We're the state partner of the National Association of Manufacturers. And so we work with them to interact with Pennsylvania's federal delegation about as often as we're asked. But our true calling is focusing on the state capitol in Harrisburg and that state public policy differential, because manufacturing is the engine that drives Pennsylvania's economy. It's the sector that adds the most value. It's the sector that has the strongest spin-off effect on job creation, And it also, because it's the sector that adds the most value, it offers careers with wages and benefits that are above average, that they're the family sustaining jobs that make, that hold communities together and uphold our civilization. And so, no matter what it is that you're making, a manufacturer is going through a multi-stage process, taking raw materials or component parts to yield a finished good. The more complex, the more advanced the thing that is being made, obviously, the more value that's being added, and the greater contribution to the economy. In Pennsylvania, at least before the pandemic, manufacturing added about $93 billion worth of value every year, and that core manufacturing activity directly employed about 565,000 Pennsylvanians on the plant floor and in direct oversight of that manufacturing function. But the manufacturing activity itself sustains millions of additional Pennsylvania jobs in supply chains, through key vendors, and through the distribution network. And so, again, it's not just that activity on the plant floor, it's everything else that's made possible because that manufacturing function is taking place. And of course, if you lose that manufacturing function, you don't just lose the jobs on the plant floor, you lose all the value that gets added, and you lose all of those jobs that are related to the manufacturing process. So this is what we fight for. In a lot of Pennsylvania communities, having that factory is what helps not only to employ people and to generate prosperity, but also sustains the tax base, so that there is enough value being added, wealth being created, salaries being paid, so that local and state tax coffers are being filled to meet important public purposes. So anyway, trying to it's sort of thumbnail sketch that our mission at PMA is to minimize the stupidity of state government, and a heavy emphasis on minimize. Didn't say eliminate, just said minimize, to try to move the needle on competitiveness, to catch up with our neighbor states, other industrial states, because the sad truth is that over the years and over the decades, that Pennsylvania's economy has only grown at a fraction of the national average. And that, that's a pretty sad commentary that we aspire to mediocrity. But there's a mindset in Harrisburg that so long as we are slightly less bad than New York and New Jersey, that we're okay. And that flat out, that's not good enough. That we need to benchmark Pennsylvania against the high performing states, and in particular neighbors like Indiana and North Carolina, which are not that far away. That we need to keep in mind that it's a big bad world, and as I said at the outset, that all of these economic decisions are voluntary, and that we here in the Commonwealth need to act like we want the jobs and the growth to happen here. So with our portfolio of issues at PMA, the things that we consistently wind up working on. And again, it's important to emphasize, I'm a manufacturing advocate, not an actual manufacturer. So the makers and the doers, the investors and the risk takers, those are the folks who we fight for. But we at PMA, that we're translators. As Mary said, I was a dramatic arts major. I'm lucky to have a job. But if we tackle these important regulatory and tax issues, and if we can decipher them to the point where we can understand them, put them into everyday language, then it makes it possible for us to go to the lawmakers and other decision makers and help to explain why we need to make these positive changes for Pennsylvania so that we can earn the investment and jobs and growth that come from a stronger manufacturing sector. So for the issues that we work with, I would say that there are 5 points on the star. Number one is the budget and spending. That it's a fundamental fact that when government spends money faster than people can earn it, it suffocates growth. And so even though, of course, public needs are infinite, that we are here to argue, to hold the line, to match expenditures to revenues, not the other way around, and in that way to try to get into a positive cycle where the private economy is growing faster than government. That way, when people are earning, they're paying taxes, that government can have enough resources to do what it needs to do. If we don't hold the line on spending, then the rest of these things aren't possible. Because the second point is that we need to prioritize pro-growth business tax relief. Pennsylvania is a very expensive place to do business. And unfortunately, that's something else that has hindered our overall growth. Pennsylvania has the highest flat business tax rate in the country at 9.99%. Other states have escalating rates, and a few of them top out above 9.99. But in Pennsylvania, you're paying that highest flat rate on $1, and that's just one of quite a number of things that we need to do to fix that. So we focus on spending restraint, pro-growth tax relief. Third item of the 5 is regulatory reform. And no one is saying that there shouldn't be rules. Of course there should be rules, but those rules should make sense. They should be based on sound science, and that they should be subjected to some kind of meaningful, independent cost-benefit analysis to make sure that the costs that are being imposed on the economy are worth it in terms of the benefits that the citizens experience. Also, we would argue that the public good that comes from regulation is compliance, that when people follow the rules and are doing what you want, that's the desired outcome. And for that reason, that government, state government, should be a partner in compliance, and that the regulatory regime shouldn't just be for gotcha and for hitting people with fines and other punishments. It would also be nice if anybody went back around and checked whether the rules and the things that we put in place, whether they worked, whether they worked but had other effects that were not good, whether they didn't work at all, whether they didn't work and had effects that were bad, or whether it solved the problem and therefore those rules are no longer needed anymore. It's the unintended consequences, the undesired outcomes from putting everything on autopilot is something also that needs to be addressed. So regulatory reform is the third of 5. Fourth, limiting lawsuit abuse. They don't call them Philadelphia lawyers for nothing. Pennsylvania has a very litigious environment, that the litigation industry in Pennsylvania is very powerful. And that has a negative effect on the economy, especially for the people who make things. One of the examples I'll point to, that in some states, there's a limit on the useful life of products. There's a recognition that that nothing that's made by humans lasts forever. And so in North Carolina, when you buy something new, if it goes kerflooey and blows up in your face within 7 years, absolutely sue away. After that point in time, there's a recognition, things wear out, they don't last forever. 7 years in North Carolina is the strictest limit of any state in the country. In other states, they have it at 15 years or 10 years or 12 years, but there's a recognition that things don't last forever. In Pennsylvania, you can get sued to the end of time. That if Pass and Stow wasn't based in London, you could sue them today for the crack in the Liberty Bell. And we just want to enact common sense reforms to enable people to go about their business when they're doing this in good faith. Actually, one of the crises at the moment is trying to get some kind of safe harbor for businesses and actually all kinds of other institutions, including our colleges and universities, that if they are abiding by CDC compliant practices with masks and distancing and sanitizing workstations and all those other things, that they would have a safe harbor to be protected from lawsuit abuse with cases involving the pandemic. Obviously, the infection is everywhere, and that sadly that the lawsuit industry is viewing the pandemic as being a business opportunity. So pushing back on lawsuit abuse is one of the standard things that our manufacturers need, and so that's one of the things we fight for. The fifth and final point, issues that we wind up working on, labor law and the workforce. And actually prior to the pandemic, that this was the top priority for our manufacturers, that at any given point, there are about 6,000 open positions in Pennsylvania manufacturing, and that winds up being a drag on growth. Like how long, I mean, eventually those jobs do get filled, but how long does it take? What kind of expense falls on the employer? It's a difficulty that we need to address, and it may be the thorniest and most complex of the issues that we face. And I'll come back to that in a minute, but there are a few other points I wanted to get to, because, again, manufacturing is so broad, and we at PMA, we represent everybody who makes everything from from Hershey's Kisses to Chinook helicopters from Boeing, but the great commonality between manufacturing, no matter what it is that you're making, you are almost always A, consuming a large amount of energy, and B, deploying some kind of chemical process. And so at PMA, that we're very concerned about energy and chemistry, and specifically that we are very, very committed to a pro-production agenda for Pennsylvania energy. And which brings us, of course, to the opportunity that comes from the Marcellus Shale play, which is incredibly abundant with methane, with natural gas, and also in the western part of Pennsylvania, that methane comes out of the ground with a lot of other chemicals, ethane, butane, propane, pentane, and natural gasoline. Those chemicals are feedstocks for manufacturing. We can make stuff out of that. And so the business opportunity from not just the methane, which can be used for fuel, for firing industrial furnaces, for home heating and cooking, and for electricity generation, having abundant domestic energy in great volumes at low prices is an advantage for Pennsylvania, or at least it ought to be. But then also having the value that can come from this petrochemical manufacturing. You may have heard about the investment that was made by Royal Dutch Shell out in Beaver County, that they are building a facility which right now is the largest construction site in North America. And that this facility, all in, is going to be about $6 billion, $6,000 million worth of private sector investment. And that facility is going to take the gas ethane, crack a hydrogen molecule off of it, and turn that ethane into ethylene. Ethylene is at the top of a value chain that, depending on how you process it, can yield every kind of plastic, rubber, styrofoam, every kind of paint, glaze, solvent, coating, and adhesive. Again, these are inputs into every consumer good that you and I purchase and handle and use every day. We are at the dawn of an entirely new industry in Pennsylvania, and for all the focus that's come to to the energy sector, to the natural gas opportunity from the drilling, which of course has been enormous and has added a lot of value, this manufacturing opportunity is bigger, and actually is going to be bigger by like an order of magnitude. So at every turn we have been working to try to maximize that opportunity for our manufacturing sector. And the most recent piece, there's a bill that's on the governor's desk right now, a production-based tax credit for the value chain from methane, from the natural gas itself, which can be used to yield fuels, but also fertilizers for agricultural purposes. And we're hopeful that he'll sign off on that. PMA did an economic analysis. The two projects that are on deck waiting would be $1 billion in private sector investment, including $300 million in wages for our construction workers. So, this is what we fight for. And I just want to finish on a note here, talking about the workforce, that and again, the complete paradox of me, who was, privately educated expensively educated at a private liberal arts college, studying history and theater. I'm like the least plausible person to be giving the Mike Rowe kind of message. And yet, in fact, it's all true. And that there's a great need, there's a great hunger in the economy for individuals who have the kinds of skills to go into that manufacturing setting, to deal with, to be a machinist or a plumber or an electrician or, a boilermaker or, steel worker, any of those traits. And it's not so much that the jobs aren't there. As I said, at any point, there are about 6,000 open positions. It's that my employers can't find the people with the skills. And oftentimes they tell me they can't find people who are trainable. And that's the really scary part, because these are great careers, and that for them to go wanting, there's a pretty serious disconnect. I think that there's a sickness in our society when we don't value all kinds of work, and that, you know, we're so wedded to that concept that you've got to chase the golden ticket of a 4-year degree, which is great for some people. It was what I needed. But when we bully young people into telling them, well, you know, you're going to waste your life if you don't do this specific thing, we close off these other options where people would be, you know, perhaps happier. They certainly would be better off, you know, working in a skilled trade, working in a manufacturing facility, adding value, getting great salary and benefits and pensions, as opposed to being somebody who is dragging the ball and chain of student debt after, you know, after washing out following a semester or 2 or 3. And so, and I'll just end with this. There's a wrong-headedness that we need to address. You know, we come home and we flick the light switch and we think we turned the lights on, when all we did was we closed a circuit that was wired into our home by an electrician using tools and materials that came from a manufacturing facility that connect you to the lines that the linemen strung, that connect you to the power plant that had to be designed and built and staffed and powered, and on and on and on. That all of us are the beneficiaries of our very high and ever rising standard of living, but that's brought to us by all of these different systems. And if we don't, and it gets a paradox, the part of the consumer experience is to make it invisible, so that we just get to enjoy the service or the good or the experience that's being brought to us. But we've stopped thinking about how these things are made possible. And when we stop thinking about it, we stop valuing it. And, you know, I hopefully that this is something that the pandemic has taught us, how we depend on one another, and that the truck driver and the forklift guy at the warehouse, these are all important things for all of us, and that we'd be in bad trouble if we didn't have those folks to do those things for all of us. So anyway, I've gone on quite a bit. Please, I'm glad to be with you and to take your questions.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, David. Well done. And there are some questions, you know, making their way to the proverbial pipeline here. Let's start with a question here. Are there any examples that you could give us of how any of your members have overcome the challenges of the COVID shutdown and business closures?
Well, the shutdown is a sore subject. We very much regret that the governor and his front office did not reach out to any of the stakeholders, including us, before handing down the rules, you know, regarding how work was going to proceed, and that they went, you know, up and down through they didn't follow the federal guidelines. The Department of Homeland Security had guidelines on how to proceed, and 47 states took that and followed it. Pennsylvania did not. Pennsylvania did its own thing, and that they went through the industrial code using, I think, the eeny, meeny, miny, mo method, because they shut down things that other things depended on. And even now, we're still, manufacturers are still trying to, you know, get the sand out of the gears and to reestablish, you know, supply chains and get key vendors online. But no, I mean, the manufacturers are the makers and doers. They are problem solvers. And there are many cases where you have, like McGee Plastics out in Western Pennsylvania, that they went from manufacturing parts for airplanes to manufacturing parts for ventilators. That you had a Eight Oaks Distillery out in the Lehigh Valley, that they went from making booze, and that they used their high-proof alcohol to make hand sanitizer, and to provide that hand sanitizer to local first responders and healthcare facilities. So I have, again, tremendous admiration for the people who, you know, who see opportunities, who adapt, who overcome. And we need to streamline all of that as best we can. We don't want to make life more difficult than is absolutely necessary.
Great. There are questions now, flooding into the proverbial pipeline. But here's, we'll get to as many of these as we can. Question, how long do you think pipelines should guarantee the safety for the communities and the communities and the properties that they pass through?
Well, obviously forever. And that's the way it works. That PMA has been at the forefront of all of the energy projects that have gone on for the last 2 years. And again, this infrastructure is permanent. And it's funny because my government affairs VP and I have been all across the Commonwealth, from the Delaware water gap to the Ohio line, and people say, oh yeah, well, you don't want a pipeline in your backyard. I have a pipeline in my backyard in Conewago Township in Dauphin County, and the only thing that happens is that the energy company sends somebody once a year to clean out the right of way to make sure that there's no long-term plant growth, and then the little green shoots come up and the deer and the foxes come. I mean, there are millions of miles of pipeline under the U.S. It's part of, again, the invisible infrastructure that upholds our quality of life. And so that the infrastructure projects are held to the highest possible standards, which is as it should be. And that, in fact, pipeline is the safest way to deliver energy from one place to another. And again, like all things made by human beings, it's not perfect, but it's 99.9985%. I mean, it's the sort of thing where if you're concerned about, if you're afraid of pipeline, there are many, many more dangerous things in your own home, like stairs, like a bathtub, certainly electricity. And, I'm trying to be funny, but you can probably tell I'm angry too, because we're having the wrong conversation. We need this infrastructure to make possible all of the prosperity that is within reach. And the outside influences that are pressing against American energy infrastructure are the ones that are opposed to American energy independence. Because if America becomes an energy superpower, which we are, we're now the #1 producer of petroleum in the world, the #1 producer of natural gas in the world. We've eclipsed Saudi Arabia. We've eclipsed Russia. And if we are able to deploy American energy to the other US states, if we're able to expand the export of liquefied natural gas to other nations around the world, we will help to disentangle them from problematic relationships with countries like Russia and the OPEC powers, which do not have our interests, do not share our values. And that when those other nations have this energy relationship with the US and the economic relationship that goes along with that, at that point, our shared security interests become congruent. So, to talk about soft power and American global leadership, we need to maximize American domestic energy production. And as I say, anything that weakens Pennsylvania energy production weakens America. So yes, we must uphold the highest standards for all of these projects. That goes without saying. I work with these companies. I have total confidence in them, and that's why I'm perfectly comfortable driving over the Mariner East pipeline twice a day to go to and from work. That's why I'm perfectly content to have a petroleum pipeline directly abutting my own backyard where my hammock is. So anyway, yes, the expectation should be that these pipelines should last forever, and that's why they're regularly checked and inspected and so on and so forth.
Sure. Thank you. So we have, I think, 3 more questions here and about 5 minutes to work with. So that's how the playing field's looking right now, but I appreciate the thoughtful reply. Question, how does PMA work with vocational schools, workforce development programs, community colleges, etc.? Are you connected with Linda Morris with the Career and Workforce Readiness Partnership?
Well, there are a number of things that we do. I do a statewide television program on the Pennsylvania Cable Network 24 weeks out of the year. And that to highlight the importance of this kind of training, that we have done tours and interviews with the leaders of those institutions, that we have been to Thaddeus Stevens College in Lancaster, to the Pennsylvania College of Technology in Williamsport, and to the Williamson College of the Trades in Media. There are a few other visits that are outstanding. Also, I recently joined the board of the foundation at the State System of Higher Education. That certainly the 14 PASHE schools need to be part of the solution when it comes to the workforce and aligning the skills that are being imparted by those institutions to the jobs that are available in the economy. So those are all different ways that we're helping to address that problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. This is a two-part question. Would you be able to put in context Pennsylvania manufacturing as compared with other states? And secondly, are there elements of difference that we should be taking at this time in light of the coronavirus, independent of limiting legal liability?
Well, sure. Pennsylvania is the 5th most populous state by population. In terms of the ranking of manufacturing output, we are not at 5th. I think we might be 6th or 7th. But there are some states, like I was saying, Indiana, which is a much less populous state than us. They're number 4, in America in terms of manufacturing output. When it comes to how we respond to the pandemic, the one thing that we absolutely have to do is to, and this gets into a very long, complicated issue, and I'm glad to come back another time to discuss, but for more than 20 years, that the United States has allowed the dictatorship in Beijing to engage in systematic, predatory, mercantilist practices that have stripped away America's industrial capacity. We're only realizing now the way that they have us over a barrel when it comes to the manufacture of our medications and other critical healthcare inputs like the personal protective equipment. So we need to completely rethink our approach to international trade. We need to recognize, as I said at the outset, about the way manufacturing adds value and sustains quality of life. The high cost of the low price, in many instances, is it's damaging to our economy. We're always going to have to compete. I'm not calling for protectionism. It's important that we undergo the rigors of a competitive marketplace, but trade is for allies, and that we want to make sure that America uses our economic strength in support of our national interest and our allies and our shared values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot there, a lot in that. So again, just a few minutes left here. Do you do any work regarding changing the right to work laws?
Well, yeah, PMA long stands for right to work, that we believe that the labor union should have to earn members the same way that businesses earn customers, one by one and all over again the next day. But that being said, there's an interesting realignment that's going on with the industrial unions, the hard hat workers, that they've come to recognize that, for whatever friction there is with management, there always will be, that the radical greens are an existential threat, that at least that labor and management agree that the industrial activity should occur and that these jobs should exist. So at least when it comes to the private sector unions and the manufacturing sector, I believe that we're at the dawn of a new and greater appreciation of one another, which is welcome.
Thank you. I did say 3, but there was one more that popped in, so take 60 seconds if you could. For the past few months, manufacturers have stepped up and produced additional hospital supplies, ventilators, and other equipment. Are there discussions in process within PMA or outside regarding dealing with the surplus of these equipment supplies in the next few months and years?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a challenge that we haven't gotten to yet. because we're not yet to the other side of this. Obviously, we're well past the peak of the infection, and that there was a lot of scrambling, a lot of retooling, and that we will wind up with a superabundance of those items. Of course, it's better to have too much than not enough, but how all that stuff is going to be disposed of remains to be seen. Hopefully, it'll be done in a way that maximizes efficiency and adds the best resilience to our healthcare institutions. And that hopefully the people who went into overdrive making that stuff to deal with the crisis are properly compensated.
Thank you so much. Let's give it up for David here. Great presentation, and we so appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. You did a great job. I just, I think you would be a great Rotarian too. Just needed to say that. So folks, we have 3 winners from the Think Outside the Box exercise: Nate Hartwig, Steve Schwartz, and Una Martone. Each of you will be getting a little Rotary gift in the mail. Those exercises, again, they're going to pop up here in our meetings as we go through the year, so don't miss a meeting. Read the roundup cover to cover. We will be here again next week in a Zoom meeting with Jen Swales, for the Pennsylvania Secretary of Budget. And the board, really kind of got together, talked at our last board meeting about how we want to do Zoom meetings and so on and so forth going forth here. We're going to be doing Zoom meetings until the end of the year, but we're also really looking for opportunities to connect people one-to-one. So stay tuned for those service projects, and any place that we can be helping to connect in person. We want to do that. We also want to stay safe. So so stay tuned, stay flexible, and we appreciate all that you do. Love you all. Make it a great Rotary week, and look forward to seeing you here again next week.